At first, the mirror didn't seem strange at all. It was just an old mirror hanging on the closet door in my bedroom. The glass looked dirty around the corners, like it had been there for years, but I didn't really care. The apartment itself already felt old and uncomfortable. The floor creaked when I walked, and every night the pipes inside the walls made low noises that sounded almost human. I kept telling myself it was normal. Old buildings make sounds. That's what everyone says. But after a few days, I started noticing tiny things about the mirror. Small movements, little details that didn't feel right. Sometimes when I walked past it, I felt like my reflection moved a fraction of a second too late. It was subtle enough to ignore, but impossible to forget. I would stop and stare at the glass for a while, trying to catch it happening again. Every single time, my reflection looked completely normal. One night, I came home exhausted from work and collapsed onto my bed without even turning the lights on. Around 2 a.m, I suddenly woke up with this horrible feeling in my chest. The room was silent, too silent. I looked toward the mirror across the room, and for a second, I could barely breathe. My reflection was already staring at me, not moving, not blinking. I slowly sat up in bed, and after a pause, it copied me. That tiny delay made my stomach twist. I remember trying to convince myself I was dreaming, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then I rubbed my eyes with both hands. My reflection didn't. It just stood there watching me, with this faint smile slowly spreading across its face. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the mirror. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing that smile in the dark. The next morning, I tried to laugh it off and convince myself I was just tired. Stress can mess with your head. That's what I told myself while getting ready for work. But the entire time I stood in front of the sink, brushing my teeth, I avoided looking directly at my reflection. Things only got worse after that. I started noticing delays more often. Tiny ones at first. When I turned my head, my reflection seemed slower by half a second. When I reached for something, it copied me just a little too late. Nobody else would have noticed it, but I did. Once you see something like that, you can't unsee it. Afi. Nights later, I was standing in my bedroom folding clothes when the power suddenly flickered. The lights went out for maybe 2 seconds. That was all. But in those 2 seconds, I saw something standing inside the mirror. Not me. Something taller. Its face looked almost identical to mine, except the smile was wider than any human smile should be. I stumbled backwards so fast I hit the wall behind me. Then the lights came back on, and the mirror showed only my normal reflection again. I couldn't breathe properly after that. The apartment started feeling different, heavy, like the air itself was watching me. I began hearing soft noises at night coming from the bedroom. Tiny tapping sounds, scratching sounds. Once, I heard what sounded like whispering near the closet door. Every time I checked, the room was empty, but the mirror never looked empty anymore. It felt aware, like something behind the glass was waiting for me to notice it again. I stopped inviting people over after that. I didn't even want anyone stepping inside the apartment. The place felt wrong now, like something inside it was slowly changing. Even during the daytime, the rooms felt darker than they should have. I started keeping blankets over every mirror I could find. The bathroom mirror, the small one near the hallway. Even the microwave door started making me uncomfortable because I could see my reflection in it at night. But the bedroom mirror was impossible to ignore. No matter where I stood in the room, it always felt like it was behind me, watching. Sometimes I'd catch myself glancing toward it without realizing it, almost like something was pulling my attention back to the glass. Then came the night I'll never forget. I woke up around 3 a.m, needing water. The apartment was completely silent, except for the ticking clock in the kitchen. I walked through the dark hallway half asleep, trying not to think about the mirror behind me in the bedroom. When I came back with the glass of water, I froze in the doorway. The blanket covering the mirror was on the floor. I knew I had covered it before bed. I remembered checking it twice. My hands started shaking immediately. I stood there staring at the exposed glass, trying to convince myself the blanket had just slipped off somehow. Then I noticed my reflection. It wasn't looking at me. It was looking down at. The glass of water in my hand. A second later, it slowly lifted its eyes toward me and smiled before I did. The glass slipped from my fingers and shattered across the floor. I jumped back in panic, but my reflection didn't react at all. It just stood there smiling calmly, while tiny pieces of broken glass scattered around my feet. And then, very slowly, it raised one hand and pressed it against the inside of the mirror. After that night, I stopped sleeping in the bedroom completely. I dragged my blankets into the living room and kept every light in the apartment turned on. I didn't care about the electricity bill anymore. Darkness felt dangerous now. Every shadow in the apartment made my chest tighten. I kept hearing little noises coming from the bedroom when I tried to rest. Soft tapping against glass. Slow scratches. Sometimes, it sounded like fingernails sliding across the mirror from the inside. I tried ignoring it for 2 days. Then the whispers started. At first, they were so quiet, I thought it was coming from outside the apartment. A low voice murmuring somewhere far away. But every night, it got closer. Clearer. The strange part was I could never understand the words.
It sounded like someone speaking underwater. One night, while sitting on the couch, I heard my own name.
Clear as day. I nearly dropped my phone. The voice came from the hallway leading to the bedroom. It sounded exactly like me. Same tone. Same voice. I grabbed a kitchen knife without even thinking, and slowly walked toward the hallway. My legs felt weak. The apartment was freezing cold, and every step made the floor creak loudly beneath me. The bedroom door was slightly open. I knew I had closed it. The whisper came again. My voice. Soft, calm, almost amused.
Come here.
I pushed the door open slowly and felt my stomach sink. The mirror was uncovered again. But that wasn't the worst part. My reflection was standing closer to the glass than I was. At least a foot closer. I was near the doorway, frozen in fear. But the thing inside the mirror stood directly in front of the glass, staring back at me with that same awful smile. Then it lifted one finger to its lips, telling me to stay quiet. And behind me, somewhere inside the apartment, I heard footsteps moving through the living room. I ran out of the apartment that night, without grabbing anything, except my foe. Knee and car keys. I didn't even look back at the bedroom. The footsteps I heard behind me in the living room sounded slow and heavy, like someone deliberately following me, not chasing, just walking calmly. That somehow made it worse. I spent the rest of the night sitting in my car outside a gas station across town, trying to figure out what was happening to me. Part of me wanted to believe I was losing my mind. Honestly, that explanation felt less terrifying than the truth. The next morning, I went back to the apartment during daylight. I told myself I needed my clothes, my laptop, anything important, before leaving for good. The second I opened the front door, that same cold feeling hit me again. The apartment smelled different now. Damp, stale, like a room that had been closed for years. Everything looked normal at first. Too normal. The broken glass from the bedroom floor was gone. The blanket was folded neatly on the bed. Even the closet door looked untouched. For a moment, I actually questioned myself. Maybe exhaustion really had destroyed my sense of reality. Then I walked into the bathroom and saw my reflection staring directly at me before I even stepped in front of the mirror. I froze instantly. It wasn't delayed anymore. It moved first. I backed away from the sink slowly, but the reflection stayed there smiling while I moved. My breathing became shaky as panic crawled through my chest. I turned away from the mirror and almost screamed when I noticed something worse. The dark TV screen in the living room showed my reflection too. So did the microwave door. So did the black screen of my phone. Every reflective surface in the apartment showed the same thing. That version of me standing still, watching me, smiling wider every single time I looked away and back again. And no matter where I moved, its eyes followed me around the apartment. By that point, I knew I couldn't stay in the apartment anymore. I packed a small bag as fast as I could while trying not to look at anything reflective. I even turned the television around and covered the microwave with a towel. It sounds insane now, but fear changes the way you think. When you feel hunted, your brain stops caring about logic. I was halfway to the front door when I heard movement behind me. Not from the apartment. Not from the apartment. From the mirror in the hallway, I looked before I could stop myself. My reflection wasn't copying me anymore. It was walking, slowly, inside the mirror, not matching my movements, not connected to me at all. Sahabitatamed. At all. It moved like a real person trapped behind the glass, pacing calmly from one side to the other, while staring directly into my eyes. The smile on its face looked wider now, stretched unnaturally across its face like it was learning how humans are supposed to smile, but hadn't perfected it yet. I couldn't move. Every instinct told me to run, but my body locked in place as the thing stepped closer to the inside of the glass. Then it stopped only inches away from me and tilted its head, exactly the way I do when I'm confused. That terrified me more than anything else. It had been watching me for weeks, learning me, studying every movement, every expression, every little habit I never even noticed about myself. Then it spoke, not through the apartment, not in my head. Its lips moved inside the mirror, and I heard my own voice say, "You look tired." The voice sounded perfect, completely natural, exactly like me. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. I stumbled backward toward the front door, keeping my eyes locked. On the mirror. But the thing copied me this time, perfectly. No delay, no mistakes. Like it finally understood how to be me. Then all the lights inside the apartment shut off at once, and in the darkness, I heard my own voice whisper from somewhere behind me, "Don't leave me here alone." I don't fully remember what happened after the lights went out. That's the part that still scares me the most. My memory feels broken after that night, like pieces of it were ripped away. I remember running toward the front door. I remember hearing footsteps behind me that matched mine perfectly. And I remember the feeling of cold fingers brushing the back of my neck right before everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying on the bedroom floor. The mirror stood directly in front of me. The apartment was silent again. For a few seconds, I thought maybe it had all been some kind of nightmare. My head hurt badly, and my body felt weak, like I'd been unconscious for hours. I slowly stood up and looked around the room. Nothing seemed out of place anymore. No whispers, no movement, just silence. Then I looked into the mirror, and my stomach dropped. My reflection was staring back at me normally. No smile, no delay, nothing strange at all. But something still felt wrong. I lifted my right hand slowly. My reflection lifted its left. That's normal, right? Except I had raised my left hand. I froze instantly. My reflection didn't. It kept moving naturally, perfectly calm, pretending nothing was wrong. Then it blinked at me and smiled very slightly, almost like it knew I finally understood. I stumbled backward in panic and grabbed my phone from the floor. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped it while opening the camera app. I switched to the front camera, desperate to prove to myself I wasn't losing my mind. The person on the screen smiled before I did. That's when I noticed something even worse. The reflection inside the phone wasn't copying me anymore. It was practicing, testing facial expressions, learning reactions, trying to look human. And behind the glass of the phone screen, those eyes kept watching me like they were waiting for the moment. Nobody would notice the switch had already happened.